Yeah, so now we will move on to the next concept. Concept number first is 240. So we are in chapter number 2, 240, 250, 260, 299. Chapter concept number 4, and then 402. Out of this, the big concepts are 240 and 402. If you crack this, other things are very simple. You have seen that already, you have come across. Okay, 299 is also very simple one. Now what is your 299? Joint audit. Now why joint audit, students? See, joint audit primarily comes when you have got a scale, a large thing. Okay, I'll give an example to you. You have to tell me. Now let us imagine that we are the into catering business. Now one of the, say for example, one public function is about to happen. Like there is one big political party meet and they wanted to cook for say 5,000 people. Now see, when we talk about 5,000 people or 50,000 people, now there is one big problem, students, because see, our capacity is limited, no? Because generally 50,000 people and all, where we will cook? Because I am also a caterer, you are also a caterer. Okay, let us have two parties now, you and me. Generally any function, no, we will take order for 200 people, max to max 1,000 people, or worst, remote case we will take 2,000 people. But if you have to take say 50,000 people, that's a very big contract. Or 5,000 will keep 5,000 people, we have to cook now. One political party rally is going to happen. So since I cannot do on my own, I am not confident, neither you are confident, and nor that political party is confident. So what they end up doing, they may hire both of us together. Okay, so we agreed. Chalo, both of us together, so we can definitely do this. Now, what is the first thing? We have to discuss the division of the work, because otherwise, too many cooks spoil the broth. That English proverb is only there. If there is only one cook, there is nobody to blame. That cook only has to take the responsibility. The moment two people come, okay, responsibility issue comes now. Who is going to see success? You don't need to ask, because both people are responsible. Who is responsible for the failure? Now, what happens? You understand. You discuss that you have to primarily prepare two dishes. One, you have to prepare rice, and you have to prepare sambar. Now, we agree mutually that I will prepare, me will prepare rice, and you prepare sambar. As agreed, so I only will decide for how much kgs of rice is required. Should I start preparing cooking rice in the night, or I should start in the morning? How much big kadai is required? Will you interfere? Answer is no. Now, which type of vegetable is required? Okay, how much dal to be put in that sambar? How much big kadai should be? That is none of my business. That is your responsibility. You have to take care. This already we have communicated to that party also who appointed me. Okay, now comes the catch. My rice is ready. It is already now 12 o'clock. 12:30, the food will be served. My rice is ready, and you are giving finishing touch to the sambar. Now, there was one rat which had got frustrated in the life. It was not knowing how to commit suicide. So suddenly it saw that there is one big pot of sambar which is getting boiled. And it did one long jump into this sambar. Now you observed it. Now my only question is, what will you do? What will you do? Will you go and inform me? Okay, if I was in your position, okay, this is okay, let us interchange our role. If I see that there is one rat, very first thing I would have called you and showed this. You would have become very angry on me, because we understand the mutual responsibilities now. But what to do now? I have dragged you, because first of all, you would have scolded me. Arey Baba, it is your responsibility to see. Can't you safeguard? Can't you do your work properly? Why you did like this? I would have scolded. You would have scolded me. But please understand, friends, by informing you, I dragged you into this issue. Because what happened now? If I would have thrown this rat outside, without knowing, without you being aware. Tomorrow, if anybody comes to know about this incident, no, I'm responsible. But since I told you now, it becomes our joint decision now, whether to throw the sambar or throw the rat. Exactly the same principle apply in auditors. Same principle. So why first of all joint auditors come? Because big firms like Reliance Industries or your SBI Bank cannot be audited by a single firm, because that much of bandwidth is not available. You have got so many people there, so many complex operations will be there, and you cannot hire people only for this audit. No, rest of the year they will be not working, because this type of complexity you may not see. That's why you may want to have a blend. Like for example, see, once in a year you get an order for rasgulla. Now, will you keep one employee to make rasgulla throughout the year? No. What you do, you get hire that person only. It's more like a joint audit. One particular dish that person will do, rest of the dish you will do. It's more like a joint audit. Similarly, this is what's going to happen. And when the multiple auditors come into picture, the biggest problem is with the responsibility, because tomorrow if anything goes wrong, everybody start blaming each other. I didn't know, that was your job, you should have done it. Now, what is that joint responsibility we have got? So SA 299 is going to speak about that. Now, SA 299 lays down the principles for effective conduct of joint audit. However, it does not deal with the relationship between the principal auditor, who is appointed to report on the financial statements of the entity, and another auditor who is appointed to do audit of one or more components. Okay, please understand here. This is one audit firm. There are two partners. You remember, no, that one of the partner died. Next day, without review, the Kumar signed. They are not joint auditors. They are one audit firm. Now, this entity has got, this is called HR, head office. This is called a subsidiary of this office. Now, this subsidiary is located in a very far away location. Now, you are the auditor of the head office. Since you cannot do audit this subsidiary either because of its jurisdiction or whether with whatever reason, now another audit firm would have been hired to do the audit of this. Like for example, branch audit of a bank. Now, what this auditor will do, he will prepare one standalone financial statement and he will sign that. Means you would have signed the standalone financial statement. So for HO also, one standalone financial statement would have been prepared, it would have been signed. But since this HO has got a subsidiary, parent has got a subsidiary, a consolidated financial statement would have prepared, and this head office auditor would have signed that consolidated financial statement consolidating this. You know this Ind AS 110, this concept also now. Are this person and this person joint auditors? Answer is no. They are called a principal auditor and a component auditor. SA 600 is going to talk about their responsibilities. Now, who are joint auditors? That means for one entity audit, two audit firms have been appointed, which are not related to each other. Then the joint audit concept is going to come. This is what they told in the first part. Now, what is the joint audit? It is an audit in which two or more auditors are appointed with the objective of issuing one single audit report. You are not going to issue multiple reports. Now, the practice is really required for larger entities. Okay, sometimes voluntarily by the shareholders also, they also may demand. Okay, so it has been in a practice for a long time. Auditors known as joint auditors conduct the audit jointly and report on the financial statement. Now, section 139(3) provides that members can demand for joint audit. They may ask, sir, our audit should be done by more than one person. Okay, we'll go to the objectives. What is the objective? To lay down the broad principles of the joint audit, follow the uniform approach for the process of joint audit, identify the areas of work, and identify individual and joint responsibility. First of all, what are the principles? How you need to approach now, how you need to identify and divide the work, and what are your responsibilities. These are all the four objectives. We'll move on, friends. It's very simple. See, anything starts with the planning. Audit planning, which is your SA 300. So, in case you are doing joint audit, because if you are not doing joint audit, then SA 300 is applicable. SA 299 doesn't come into picture. If you are doing joint audit, then how planning is going to happen? Is it possible that only one of the firm can do planning, or should all be involved? How risk assessment is going to happen? Can one of the firm can do risk assessment on behalf of other joint auditors? How do they will start allocating the work to each other? Okay, so this is your first requirement: audit planning, risk assessment, allocation of the work. Now, they say that the standard says engagement partner and the key members of the team from each of the joint auditors shall be involved in planning. So, if 3 joint auditors are appointed, 3 engagement partners and their key team members should be sitting. You cannot prepare the audit plan only with the 2 engagement partners. And if you have done any audit plan without that third person, then that third person will not be bound. Okay, in fact, there is a violation of SA 299 only. Third person also cannot do. That means, okay, if your contract has been given, then like, so for example, that political party meeting, I told you, if 3 caterers are appointed, all the 3 caterers should sit in a round table conference, talk to each other, and figure out like how to plan for the audit. This is the first thing. Now, when you talk about planning, in SA 300 we have seen there are 2 components of planning. It's called audit strategy and audit plan. Now, the overall strategy that sets the scope, timing, and direction, and that guides the development shall be established jointly. So that means the plan should be joint plan. Are you clear, students? One party cannot do the plan on behalf of others. All the 3 members should sit. They have to sign that joint plan and hand over to the management. Now, prior to the commencement of the auditor, joint auditor should discuss and develop a joint audit plan. And what are the factors they should consider? Okay, so there are 5 factors which they need to consider. Now, how do you remember this and how do you know this? It's a very simple, student. This is what exactly you studied at the intermediate level. Identifying division of the areas and common areas, like which, like I told you, rice you should do it, sambar I will do it, okay, leaf and care service you do it, hand wash you do it, okay, chutney we will do it together. So something like division of the work should be identified and they should be discussed. Who should be doing specific area, who should be doing common area. Now, where the joint auditors are appointed, they should by a mutual discussion divide the work. Division of the work should be usually in terms of identifiable units of specific areas. What do you mean by identifiable units? They can say Bangalore branch you do it, Bangalore branch I will do it, head office you do it. Or it can be specific area wise, they can happen. See, in Bangalore we have got 2 units. Okay, you take care of the Bangalore region, I will take care of the Bangalore region. So accordingly, you can define based on the area or you can define based on the units. In some cases, due to the nature of the business, such a division of work may not be possible. Like you have got only one entity. You don't have any space. It is located in one area only. It is one entity only. Now, it may not be very easy for you to locate. In such situation, division may be done with reference to assets or liability, income and expense. Then we will discuss that, okay, sales you do it, purchase I will do it, fixed assets you do it, your employee cost I will do it. So ideally, you should have done it division wise or area wise. But if this is not possible, you can shift yourself to asset, liability, income, expenditure wise. Now, certain areas of work due to their importance or owing to the nature would not be divided but covered by all the joint auditors. Like for example, the treasury can be a very important element. So all of them may decide together, okay, let us do this audit together. Let us not distribute to any one person because it is huge and it is very important. Yeah, this portion is very important. Okay, how the division of work is going to happen. So your answer is division of work is going to happen through mutual discussion. It can happen in identifiable units wise or area wise. If that is not possible, then it can happen based on asset, liability, income, expenditure, and some area could be done by all the auditors. This is the 4 point you need to say. Now, ascertain the reporting objectives of the engagement. Consider and communicate all the joint auditors factors that affect the significant in directing the team effort. That means if you see that this year some mergers and acquisitions have happened, okay, some expansion has happened, some impairment related works are there, okay, then if you identify them significant effort is going to happen, then you have to consider, that means carefully think and communicate to everyone, even though it may not be related to your area. Then consider the results of preliminary engagement activities. In SA 300 we are going to learn later, chapter number 3. So what do you mean by preliminary engagement activity? That means before you start the work, you have to do certain elements there. Where applicable, whether the knowledge gained in similar engagement, irrespective of the whether it is relevant or not. See, the 4 areas: integrity of the client, competency, ethical requirements, and your engagement letter. These are all the 4 aspects you need to verify. Anyhow, you need not focus here. And ascertain the nature, timing, extent of the resources required. Out of this, if you ask me, students, this is very important. Okay, now let me show you the intermediate, what you had studied. See, this was chapter number 2, planning in intermediate. And if you see the intermediate planning, see, the first part is your planning process. In your planning process, we have got this preliminary engagement activities. Okay, continuance of the client relationship, ethical requirement, understanding of the terms. Now, you see here, overall of establishment of the overall strategy. What are the factors auditor should consider in establishing overall strategy? See, characteristics of the engagement. If I come back here, okay, so identify the division of audit area. It is more like a characteristics of the engagement. Like, what is the characteristics of the engagement? Is this engagement area wise, unit wise, asset wise? That is called primarily the characteristics. That's why I told you this is important, because in the intermediate level the components were difficult: applicable FRF, nature of the business, industry specific requirement. Then the second point is reporting objectives. See, it has got sub points, but they have not discussed. They said reporting objective, only reporting objective. The third point, what you have got in the intermediate about this is your significant factors that affect the efforts. Now, what are those? Like volume of transaction, industry development, they didn't discuss here. Okay? Significant matters that affect the efforts. Then the fourth point is the result of preliminary engagement activities. What are those? Okay, here, consider the results of preliminary engagement activity. Now, what are those preliminary engagement activity? 4, just now I showed you. And the fifth one, what you have got is nature, timing, extent of the resources required for budgeting. Nature, timing, extent of the resources. So, the para what you are seeing here, the 5 points what you are going to see as part of the audit strategy is nothing but the same intermediate thing only. Only one difference is there with regard to the characteristics of the engagement. That is this. That's why you have to focus this towards. This is your key. Other things you remember or not, forget it. Because in ICA intermediate level only they must have asked you question. Because in intermediate it is much more deeper than what you are seeing final here. But if you see this component is not missing, is missing in the intermediate. So they can ask you a specific question on this. How do you allocate the work? That's a simple question. I hope it's clear. At this stage, ROMM needs to be considered. So you have done the planning. SA 300 is complete. After planning, what you are supposed to do? Risk of material misstatement assessment by understanding entity, environment, and the internal control. Now they move to SA 315 after you have done audit strategy. Who should do audit strategy and planning? All the joint auditors should do together. The ROMM needs to be considered and assessed by each joint auditors and shall be communicated to the other joint auditors, whether pertaining to the overall financial statement level or area allocated to them. Then risk of material misstatement assessment. What do you mean by assessment? Identify. How? By performing risk assessment procedure. Plus assess. What do you mean by assess? Find the position. What do you mean by that? Whether it is overall or assertion level. So who should do this risk assessment now? Every joint auditor has to do. So they should do for the financial statement as a whole, and they should do assessment for the work which has been allocated to them. whatever risks they have identified, they have to communicate to each other. Why? Because the assertion level risk which I have detected for my area may also be relevant to them. Overall risk is relevant to everyone. What you have identified overall risk, maybe like for example, political party may not pay the money after you finish the food. Now this is one overall risk. So this is applicable to you also, me also. So you have to identify the overall risk and assertion level risk, and you have to communicate to each other. They have to discuss and document the nature, timing, extent of the audit procedure for common and specific. This is called a plan. If I go back to the inter, see, what do you mean by a plan? Nature, timing, extent of the audit procedure. That's, you have to establish a plan. That's called establishing a plan. So once you have done with the 315 understood, you have to draw the plan. Here strategy, and you have to document it, and should be communicated to TCWG. The copy of that planning document has to be communicated to the TCWG. The joint auditor shall obtain common engagement letter and common management representation letter. The work allocation document should be signed and communicated to the TCWG. Same point. The documentation and allocation helps in avoiding any dispute. Yeah, now it is very clear, and any confusion also. That means we are very clear now who is supposed to do what. You see, student, this is one of the basic principles. This is the clarity what they have brought. So with this, no, you would have completed your objective number, basic principles, providing uniform approach, and identifying the areas of work for audit. Now the second thing what we have to speak about is the responsibility. I hope it's clear. Yeah, before we proceed, we will start making one small notes. Okay, so we will go to concept number. Yeah, in essay, you may leave some space because in the previous essay, in essay 260, communication process and defective two-way communication we had to write. You can just write one heading there because there is nothing important. Yes, so we will move on to essay 299. Concept 4. Joint audit. Okay, straight away we start with the objective. 1. Lay down broad principles. Second, provide uniform approach. Third, identify distinct area of work. Yeah, in fact, lay down broad principles, uniform approach. These things have not been discussed. Please understand. Or I can say this joint planning, that can be covered here. And the fourth one, individual and joint responsibility. Okay, how do you do the audit now? How do you do the joint audit? For this, we have got requirements. The first requirement is audit plan plus risk assessment plus work allocation. Okay, what are the pointers for you? Point number one. Each joint auditor involvement. So there should be involvement of each joint auditors. Develop joint audit strategy. So you have to develop a joint audit strategy, not plan, because this is part of, they will call it plan. See, these words are interchangeably used, but the 5 points what you see are of a strategy. Now, what does this covers? A, identify division of audit area and common area. Okay, which is audit area, which is common area. How do you identify? You can identify unit wise. Okay, first of all, how? Through mutual risk. Okay, now we can straight away say unit wise, area wise, FS, component, financial statement item component wise. Second, reporting objective. Okay, under what compliance framework you are supposed to your reporting. Third, significant directions, significant efforts. Fourth, result of preliminary engagement activity. And 5, nature, timing, extent of resources required. Out of this, I told you this is important. Identify the division of audit area. Next element, first element is what? Each joint auditor should be involved. Develop joint audit strategy. Then third one, risk assessment. Each joint auditor to assess overall risk, which is affecting the financial statement as a whole, assertion risk, of allocated area. Plus communicate others. Okay, so first each joint auditor has to assess overall risk, assertion level risk of which allocated area only. Overall risk they have to do. Plus they have to communicate their findings with others. So risk assessment is done. Then 4, document audit plan. So what does it includes? Nature, timing, extent of procedures for common area, allotted area. You see the beautiful clarity which emerges. And then communicate again. TCWG. Here, risk assessment has to be communicated to each other. Audit plan has to be communicated to the TCWG. 5th, common engagement letter plus representation letter. That's it. Okay, I hope you are done. So the next one we will see. We are done with the audit planning, their allocation of the area. Now, what is the responsibility and coordination among the joint auditors? How they should be coordinating each other? So, the standard is very clear, students. For the work which is divided among the joint auditor, each joint auditor shall be responsible only for the work allocated to such joint auditor, including its execution. Like tomorrow, if the sambar has been allocated to you, whether the salt was proper or were you not supposed to put to whatever that sambar, like how much should have been boiled or you boiled it too much, that is your responsibility. Tomorrow, if any fees deduction is going to happen, it is from your fees. If any misconduct related cases are going to come, it will be against you, not against me, because my job is to do rice. I have done it properly. And we have already divided it, we agreed, we signed and handed over to the TCWG also. Now, where specific zones, divisions or units have been allocated to different joint auditors, it is the separate and specific responsibility of each auditors to obtain information explanation from the management. Okay, understood. Where the work has been divided, you could have divided the work using divisions, zones or units. So it is your responsibility. So they should have a proper coordination and rationale. Now, are they jointly and severally responsible? Answer is yes, when under certain circumstances. 1. The work which is not divided. Like for example, you have arranged for food for 5,000 people. You didn't make arrangement for hand wash. Water is not there. Now what these people will shout, the people who came for eating food, they will start shouting, where is hand wash now? Now nobody thought about it. Now who become responsible? Everyone become responsible. You and me become responsible. So we have missed to divide any work. then all the joint auditors become jointly and severally responsible. What is the meaning of joint and several? Joint and several means, see, one of the joint auditor died, then we may become personally liable for their share also. Okay, so this is called a joint and several. Now, joint decision in respect of the common audit areas concerning nature, timing, extent of the procedures to be performed by each of the auditors. Like, okay, this is a common audit area. What is that common audit area? We all decided that we will together prepare chutney. Now, which type of chutney was required? Or should we put garlic in the chutney? See, these are all called joint decision. Similarly, in the organization like treasury audit, it can be a common audit area because we discussed previously, because it's a very high profile case. Now, all of them decide to do it together. This becomes a common audit area. It's not that undivided area. Now, with regard to certain things, like for example, sample, how much sample should be selected, they decided jointly. Now, even though they might have decided jointly, it must have been done by one of the joint auditor. This time, everybody becomes responsible. Joint decision, everybody. See, performance, only this party becomes responsible. But tomorrow, if you realize that in this chutney, garlic should not have been put. You understand the difference words here. See, I will give the chutney to you, I will prepare rice. Without asking anybody, you only have put garlic and it say, let us assume it is a temple function. Now, who becomes responsible? You become responsible. We decide to do this chutney together. This is called a common audit area. So, we both jointly decided that we will put garlic. Now, who became responsible? We both of us became responsible. See, now, its execution could have been done by one person. Okay. Now, we cannot make that person responsible because decision is jointly taken. Now, matters which are brought to the notice of the joint auditors by any one of them and agreed by all. This is what I told that rat. See, Sambar, you are responsible, but did you bring that problem in my notice now? Now, we became responsible now together. So, you figured out one misstatement in your area. Now, you brought that in the notice of mine. Even though that division I am not responsible only. It was your division, your problem. But the moment you bring your problem on the table or the notice of the joint auditor, all of the joint auditors become responsible for that. Examining the financial statement comply with the legal requirements. Presentation and disclosure is as per the applicable framework. An audit report complies with the relevant statute and applicable standard. These three elements are the joint. Why? Okay, why? First of all, examining the financial statement of the entity comply with the applicable legal requirement. Like, are you supposed to prepare as per banking schedule, banking regulation act, or are you supposed to prepare as per schedule 3? Why everybody is responsible? Because in that single financial statement, both of us are signing, right? So it becomes a common responsibility of both now. Presentation and disclosure of the financial statement, we cannot divide it. We both become responsible because it's also part of, we have signed there both. And ensuring audit report also complies, like as per SA 700 or as per your form 3CA, whatever it is, we all of us become responsible. So there are 6 areas where joint and several responsibilities there. Mark it very important. Work not divided, joint decision for common area, brought to the notice of one, legal requirement, your presentation and disclosure, audit report. Now, where in course of the audit, the auditors come across a matter which are relevant to the responsibility of other joint audit. That means, see, you came to know certain things. It is none, for your unit, it is not applicable, but you feel that it is relevant to somebody else, then you shall communicate that matter to. Are you clear? It shall be the responsibility of the joint auditors to determine the nature, timing, extent of the auditor procedure in related to the work allocated to the such joint. That means it becomes your responsibility. How do you perform it? Whether you boil the rice or whether you steam the rice, that is your job. You decide the nature, timing, extent. Because ultimately you will become responsible. As regards decision taken by all the joint auditors for common audit area concerning the nature, timing, extent of the procedure all the joint auditors are responsible only for the appropriateness of the decision concerning. Whether the execution goes wrong, that becomes a responsibility. Okay, again to give back to the same example, like I will say chutney. Is it commonly prepared? Answer is yes, common. Now we decided to prepare a chutney with garlic. Whether it was appropriate or not appropriate, that is different story. If it is not appropriate, we both of us become responsible. Because we were not supposed to prepare garlic chutney, but we prepared it. Now, in the process of preparation of garlic chutney, somebody had put more tamarind, more than what we had decided. Now, among the two, like for example, I was responsible to prepare the chutney. Execution was mine. Decision was together. Now, execution goes wrong, then I become responsible. Hope it's clear, students. Same thing, treasury audit. We decided to do the audit together. We decided how many samples to get selected, and we decided we will choose 50 samples. Now, whether that 50 sample was proper or not proper, that is our joint responsibility. Tomorrow, both of us will be questioned like, why you selected 50? You should have selected 100. So, no, we decided to select 50 and this work was given to you. But instead of selecting proper, what we thought about, like we decided to do block audit, you did random audit, random selection or cluster selection. But this is your mistake, no? You have deviated from the strategy which was given to you. This execution becomes your response. This part is clear, friends. You are okay with this particular point? Yes. So now let's see the Q&A. Essay 299. So magnet interior is a test your knowledge 7. Okay, first question. See, all the 3 questions are revolving here only on the responsibility. It is a listed company. The company has its activities divided into 4 geographical regions. Okay, it has got 4 areas. Appointed 2 joint auditors. Yes, you understood it is concept number 4, essay chapter number 2. Namely AB and CD to conduct the joint audit. The engagement partners from both the firms, Amar and Chaitanya, along with their team, had a meeting to discuss the area of work which is supposed to be divided. They're supposed to meet? Answer is yes. Have they met? Answer is yes. That means the first requirement related to the audit planning, they have complied. And their respective responsibilities. Fine. Explain the responsibilities of the joint auditor with relation to the joint audit. So did they ask you, they are asking, is it joint and several responsibility? No, they are asking only responsibility of the joint auditor. And you have to start here from the beginning. In respect of essay 299, each person is responsible only for the work allocated. However, this shall be the individual responsibility to determine the nature, timing, extent of the procedure, study and evaluate the internal control. If they come across any common area, any matters which is important to others, they have to communicate in writing to others. Okay, you can please mark it as a priority 1 question, students. Because study materials they have given in the form of para, but here they have given beautifully. So primarily, the first part they talk about the individual responsibility. What is your responsibility now? First of all, whatever work allocated to you, you have to properly execute it. How? By deciding the nature, timing, extent of the procedure. In fact, you need not write it. You can start writing from here only, these 3 points. Then, are you supposed to study the evaluate internal control and do the risk assessment? Yes, that is your responsibility. That also we discussed here. As part of the first one, we discussed at each stage you are supposed to do it. Risk assessment. Then, if you have come across certain area which may be relevant to others, which require their attention, you have to communicate in same. These are all the 3 individual responsibilities of the joint auditor. Now, what is your joint and several responsibility? Yes, work which is not divided, joint decision for common audit area, matters brought to the notice, comply with the legal presentation and disclosure, and audit report comply with the standard. Okay, here they have given one content here. As regards decision taken by the joint auditor, all joint auditors are responsible only for the appropriateness of the decision. Execution, that individual auditor only becomes responsible. Beautiful answer shown. So probably the mark allocation may be say 3 marks and 2 marks, or 4 marks and 1 mark, or 3 marks and 2 marks. We don't know. So better write 3 or 3 and 4 points. Test your knowledge, understanding 5. 4 audit firms have been appointed for conducting the statutory audit. Okay, so 4 audit firms. With this keyword, you understood that this is from the bank audit, joint audit chapter. In a public sector bank, as per guidelines, professional work was divided by the audit firm on the basis of zones of the bank, and they do it, yes, because we only saw that when they mutually discuss, they can divide through zone, they can divide through division. However, work related to the IT systems and control were not allocated due to its very nature. Now this becomes a common audit area. Now each zone, individual auditors are responsible, but for the IT, everybody becomes responsible. While planning for the above common work, it was decided to test IT general controls. Yes, students, please mark this also priority 1. IT general controls and application controls, IT dependent manual controls. Okay, whenever we talk about IT, general IT and application controls has to be tested. Now, plan the key audit procedures in relation to this common area also include testing of design and effectiveness of the control over computer operations, backup, batch recovery, etc. Okay, so now what is IT general controls, application controls? In intermediate only you had it. Okay, these are all your computer related controls. You have to test whether computer is say program change can somebody do, can have you purchase this system from the reputed vendor, is there an access security, is this computer behaving the way it is expected to behave. These are all the computer tests. So primarily they spoke here, they decided the strategy to audit. Now if they missed something which was supposed to be done which they didn't do, all 4 become responsible. Now, since they decided that, okay, IT general we will test, planned key procedures we will test, computer operations we test, and they must have decided after this, okay, Baba, IT you do, application test let this person do, CY do computer operation. And if the general IT control was not tested properly, even though it is common area, CY becomes responsible. I hope this part is very clear to you students. This is the very catch. See, if they were not supposed to test general IT controls, or they were supposed to test general IT control, but they forgot only totally, then all the 4 become responsible. They decided to, that common area also they distributed among themselves. Its execution, that person only becomes responsible. So these people are responsible only for the appropriateness. The actual audit procedure performing to test of control over batch performance were performed by D. I told no. This batch job was given to this person, DES was given this batch job. In the case in relation to above audit procedure is not performed professionally by, that means they were not serious, work was not proper. Now where the responsibility for such lapse would lie in line with SA 299, then you should say common area, appropriateness of the decision only joint auditors will come into picture. However, individual testing only DES becomes applicable, responsible, because this has become their labs. Okay, here you may write, see, this is only your test your understanding, but here you may have to write about individual responsibility, joint responsibility. In particularly joint responsibility, this point becomes very much relevant. This point number 2 plus some story here. This story, this becomes important, because these things are not going to fetch you any mark, because this case is not related to your presentation and disclosure and all. It is related to this and the additional components here. So this is first you have to write the theory and say this is how they become responsible. Now test your knowledge 10. DICE appointed 2 firms, MN and PQ, as joint auditors. This keyword you understand. In the course of audit, it has been observed that there is a major understatement of the value of inventory. Chalo, understood. After the or during the course of audit only somebody came to know. Now inventory valuation was looked by MN Associates, but there was no documentation for the division of the work between the joint auditors. Comment situation with regard to the responsibilities of the joint auditors. Okay, now what is your conclusion here? Since they said comment, you have to tell who is correct, who is not correct. So if you see here, students, there are primarily certain issues involved. One, inventory related work was not performed. Now, who becomes responsible for this? The one who has been allocated, MN. But the problem is, there is no documentation that this work was given to MN. Now, for this, no documentation, both becomes responsible. MN also, PQ also. Now, and alternatively, same question they could have asked like this in the examination. In MTP, they asked, comment on the above situation with regard to allocation of the responsibility. But if you see, students, from here, as per relevant standards on audit. So you start explaining what is your joint auditor responsibility. And you see there are 6 joint audit responsibilities here. Now, individual responsibility is to perform. But what is the important here? And these are the 3 individual responsibilities. We already covered it. But whatever you do, okay, sorry, it's not the joint audit. As per 299, they spoke about the allocation of the work, that it should be discussed through mutual discussion, specified area. Everything not required, friends, here. You need not discuss everything here. In fact, you can skip here because they are asking about the responsibility. Are they asking anything about the issue here? No, maybe in the examination they can ask you about the how the work allocation, is it proper? In that case, you can say yes. You can discuss it based on the division wise, which they have done. This is the relevant point. Okay, I'm sorry. After identification and allocation of the work, allocation document shall be signed by the joint auditors and communicated to TCWG. This they have failed. So you need not write all the story. You can write only this one particular point, because this is their responsibility as when they plan it. Now, what is their individual responsibility? To perform procedures which is given to them, study their control and bring it to the notice. What is their joint responsibility? Okay, you can write any 1 or 2 joint responsibilities. So what happened in the case? MN and associates will be held responsible for misstatement of inventory because valuation of the inventory was their responsibility. But division of the work was not documented. This becomes everybody responsible. Now, if anybody is going to file a complaint to the institute, this is how they will take the actions. I hope it's clear. The last part is your reporting. Now, see, we have to obtain single engagement letter. We have to obtain single written representation. At the same time, we have to give single audit report. Okay. First question comes, when I am issuing an audit report, am I supposed to review the work of another joint auditor? The answer is no, because both are chartered accountants. So joint auditors need not review the work performed by the other auditors, and they are entitled to assume that it has been carried out as part of the audit work, and if any issue would have been there, departure would have been there, they would have brought to your notice. So first of all, you are given some exemption from worry. That means you need not focus, you need not review the work of the other joint auditors. You can assume that yes, they must have done as per whatever they are supposed to do. If anything would have gone wrong, they would have brought to your notice. Second, they have to issue the common audit report. However, if there is any disagreement, it is not that minority suffer, majority win. You can issue one separate audit report. Oh, that means there can be 2 or 3 or 5 audit reports. See, joint auditors are not bound by the review of the majority. That's why they can issue separate audit report. However, in the audit report by the joint auditor, there should be one cross reference in other matter paragraph that one of the joint auditor has issued a separate report. And in the separate audit report of the individual auditor, there should be one cross reference for the joint auditor's report. So, any reader of the audit report comes to know that one of the auditor has got a disagreement with regard to one of the points. See, this is one of the safeguards. That is what happened, students. Like 3 joint auditors are hired by the management. 2 people are favoring them. One person is not favoring, he is independent. So what management can do? This person's audit report it can keep and only send these 2 people's audit report. See, the moment you give the reference that one of the joint auditors issued a separate report, then you are bound to send it together. So this is your responsibility. Where the financial statement of the division branch are audited by one of the joint auditors, They are entitled to proceed on the basis that they comply with the legal requirement. Before finalizing the report, they have to discuss with the conclusion with the TCWH about the content and the form. Okay, students, I hope you are clear. Yes, so we'll complete this map. So the two requirements we were talking about. The first requirement here is the audit plan, risk assessment and work allocation. Second requirement responsibility. So when we talk about responsibility, we have got individual, we have got joint. What are the individual responsibility? One, nature, timing, extent of procedures. Okay, I instead of that word, wait. I can say execution of allotted area. This is the individual responsibility. Risk assessment is in the individual responsibility. And this is what the textual knowledge answers are. Communicate matters which is relevant to others. These are all the three individual responsibilities which we have seen here. Determine the nature extent of the audit procedure for the work allocated. Do the risk assessment, and if you come across any matter, you should communicate in writing to the others. Now, what is your joint responsibility? One, work not divided. Second, common area. But here there is a catch. In common area, there can be joint decision, there can be execution. That ITGC control related example. Joint decision, all here respective auditor. Work not divided, everybody is responsible. Common area, joint decision, everybody becomes responsible. Execution, only that person. Matters brought to the notice. Okay, if any person brings any matter to the notice of other people, from that time it becomes everybody's responsibility, even though it is not related to them. Then it becomes a joint discussion. Compliance with law, presentation and disclosure, and the last one, compliance with SA. These are your joint and several responsibilities. Okay, so the third requirement, it's very simple. First is your audit planning. Second is your execution or responsibilities. Third is your reporting. Okay, what is the considerations in the reporting? Okay, I'm sorry, reporting, conclusion and reporting. One, need not review work of others. So that means I can assume others carry work properly, that they have done their work properly. Departure from FRF, Financial Reporting Framework, is brought to notice. So you need not review the work of others, and you can assume that others have complied with whatever work they are supposed to do, and they are brought to the notice whatever non-compliance, compliance with the FRF. Issue common audit report. Issue separate report on disagreement. So if you have any disagreement, you can issue a separate audit report. Cross-refer others report. That means in the joint audit report, you give reference of the individual report, and in the individual report, you give the cross-reference of the joint report. And this cross-reference in, I can say simply, other matter paragraph. You understand? You can say other matter. Okay, there is one more element called a communication with the TCWG. We need not have the mind mapping. Okay, only simple thing. What it says: when the joint auditors expect to modify the report, they should communicate the circumstances along with the proposed wordings. That already we have seen in SA 260. That means if the form and content of the audit opinion is going to report is going to change, you have to communicate in writing. If the joint auditors expect to include emphasis of matter, other matter paragraph, etc., then also you need to communicate about with the proposed wording in writing to the your TCWG. Okay, so if you are going to modify the opinion or include emphasis, you have to communicate in writing. Now let's see one last question here. ABC are the joint auditors of a company. B is of the opinion there are material misstatements in the financial statement, which if accounted could turn profit into a loss of 5 crore. That means, oh, very big material misstatement. And is it really material? In intermediate, you must have seen that if any accounting transaction which has got an implication to turn profit into loss, yes, by default it is material. In inter, you must have seen this. Therefore, he wants to give an adverse opinion. However, A and B do not concur with the views and incline to accept the management's version. Oh, that means A and B must have been tied up with the management. They must have a very good familiar relationship. Is B required to go by the majority of opinions? So first of all, you understood this joint reporter, joint auditor. Okay, here another situation, another version. The auditors were appointed. They were new to the auditors. Okay. M and P were the joint auditors in a listed company, has been existing for 50 years. That means this company has been listing for 50 years. Since beginning, the company was audited by one company called MSP Associates. But because of rotation started after 2013, the company had to bring new auditors. So since considering size and the company, two auditors were appointed as the joint auditors. This is this. Since the company is new to these joint auditors, that means both the joint auditors is the new company. The concept of joint auditor is also new to this company only. Because company only one person audited for past 50 years. First time two people are auditing, that two different new people. Now, and the concept of joint auditors to whom the work has been divided, management had a discussion and understood that each joint auditor is responsible only for the work allocated to them, whether or not they have prepared a separate report. Advice. Now this created a confusion. Now please understand, students, very beautiful question of the old syllabus MTP. This is very easy. Okay, is he supposed to go by the majority? You will say answer is no. They can issue a separate report, and in the separate report you have to give the cross reference and all. Okay, that is not the point. Let us see this question. Now here, what is the concern? Have they told very clearly? They simply said advice. In this question they said very clearly, is he be required to go by the majority? Answer is no. You can tell. But what is the advice you are going to see? What is you have to see the issue here? Issue number one here, biggest issue is, there is a big concern for the management. See, management is not ever about the concept of a joint audit. And when they started to discuss the auditor, no, each person, so like for example, this political party discussed with you or temple discussed with us. I say I am responsible for rice and you are responsible for sambar. Now, the moment this type of tone comes into picture, no, they become very much afraid. Because if each party says that I am responsible for this, then who is responsible for common? This clarity they don't have. And they said, we will issue one separate report, whether or not we have issued a separate report. Now, we have to bring that clarity about separate report, about that cross-referencing that we will discuss with you before we finalize, right? So that the management gets that comfort. No, then they will have otherwise they are thinking, Arey Baba, what if these people start issuing individual reports? Because they are totally new, right? Joint auditor was never the concept for this company. Already one auditor was auditing from 50 years. So we have to, once they said advice, you have to advise to the company, Baba, don't worry. They will give report, single report only. Okay, first of all, they need not review the work and all. They will issue a single report. But in case of disagreement only, they will issue a separate report. Even though they have issued a separate report, they have to give a cross reference for each other's report. Now company management feels a bit better. Then you have to tell further, look, whatever, whether in a single audit report or in a separate audit report, if they are going to give qualified opinion, modified opinion or emphasis of matter, don't worry sir, they are going to communicate with you before they finalize. Okay, so if the first question they ask in the examination, they say, okay, we need not go with the majority. In the second question, you can say, this is our advice to the management of the company. So management will be rest assured. So you explain him what is the concept of reporting, separate reporting. And second, you have to tell that even though separate reports are issued or not issued, all the wordings of the modification will be communicated to you. With this, we are done with the concept number 4 also. Yes, in the next class, we'll start with the 4 now. And probably tomorrow we will finish this students. We have to target. Maybe if extra class has to be taken, because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday I will not be there. We will not be able to take the class. So tomorrow we have to finish. And then you start preparing for, say, rest of the time you start preparing for the your chapter for your test for chapter number 1.